India use the G20 presidency to turn the tables on China? Beijing sent a word of advice to New Delhi earlier today as India formally took over as G20 president. The advice came in the form of a preachy Global Times editorial. G20 should be an opportunity for China-India engagement, it said. Do you sense the condescending tone here? We thought India had made its terms of engagement crystal clear. First, resolve the standoff in Ladakh. Restore status quo and then we can talk. China has not done much on that front. There have been 25 rounds of WMCC talks. It stands for Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on the India-China Border Affairs. There have also been 16 rounds of Corps Commander level talks and 16 rounds of Senior Military Commander level talks. But peace evades. And here you have China lecturing India through its mouthpiece, telling New Delhi how it should conduct itself as the president of the G20 and use the position to work together with China. But here's a thought. What if India instead leveraged its position to hold China accountable? Be it for wreaking havoc on the global economy by failing to handle the outbreak, or for choking the global supply chains by refusing to open up, or for becoming a security threat to the region. Allow me to repeat my question. Can India use its G20 presidency to turn the tables on China? G20 comprises 19 countries and a regional organization. We are talking about Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, the Republic of Korea, which is South Korea, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, the UK, the United States, and the European Union. Together, the G20 represents 65% of the world's population, 79% of global trade, and at least 85% of the world economy. What if a group so powerful begins putting tough questions to China? India is the group's president, and it is in a position to turn the tables on China. How can it do so? China says G20 is not an appropriate forum to discuss China-India border dispute. That's a quote from the Global Times op-ed. We understand G20 is not Quad, but here's the thing. Today, politics and security are intertwined with economy. The world knows this, and the world acknowledges this. I'll give you a recent example. Ukraine was not part of the formal agenda in Bali, but Western countries spared no opportunity to seize the forum to criticize Russia or to discuss Ukraine. The war was repeatedly mentioned, sometime with reference to the economic downturn, sometime supply chain disruption. Now guess what? No country has disrupted the global chain in the last few years as much as China has. What if India repeatedly highlights this and does what the West did in Bali? What if India highlights how China has been weaponizing the supply chain, trying to profit from the pandemic? The G20 is bound to act, come up with policies necessitating an alternate supply chain. In the G20 summit held in 2011 in France, members agreed that the group has a responsibility to quote-unquote coordinate their policies and produce political agreements that are very important in addressing the challenges due to conditions of global economic interdependence. Let me be clear, China is that challenge today. Businesses worldwide are suffering because China first failed to handle an outbreak and then refused to live with the virus. Many companies which have factories in China have not been able to open up. They have been forced to shut shop or suffer losses. And this issue falls perfectly in line with India's list of priorities. There are 5 issues in total. 1. Growth and prosperity. 2. Resilient global value chains. 3. MSMEs. 4. Logistics. And 5. WTO reform, or the World Trade Organization reform. If you leave the 5th one out, you'd see that China has been detrimental to all of the rest. The presidency also gives India a chance to position itself as the alternative to China. India has the resources. It has skilled labor. What's more, it is projected to grow faster than G7 countries. India can leverage its position to ask global companies to make in India instead of China. We will discuss this in detail in the coming days. You see, in the months leading up to the 18th G20 summit in New Delhi in September, there will be at least 200 G20 meetings. Ministers will be meeting, so will senior officials of G20, and all of them will be held in India and chaired by India. It's a fantastic opportunity for diplomatic outreach, for India to table its interest and seek consensus. We understand that the G20 is a grouping of multiple great powers, and each of which have multiple interests. But this is India's chance to position itself as one of the leading powers. But for that to happen, India must take hard decisions. It must boldly talk about its interests and make it known to the world. It must also ensure that member states find a consensus on these issues. I'll give you another example from Bali. For months leading up to the summit, the Western powers lobbied to keep Russia out of the event. And guess what? Eventually, Vladimir Putin did not have a seat in Bali. See what I'm talking about? What's stopping India from following suit? We are not saying stop Xi Jinping from flying down to India later next year. Or don't give a forum to Chinese Sherpas. My point is simple. Just like the West raised security concerns in Bali, ensured that Russia remains a talking issue, India too can do the same and turn the tables on China. And why shouldn't it? Beijing, after all, is the biggest security threat to this neighborhood. It has engaged India in a standoff, warned the US against interfering. China is flexing its muscles in the South China Sea, amping up nuclear warheads and threatening Taiwan. You see, India believes in multilateralism, and China stands for everything antithetic to that. It is synonymous with unilateral coercion. Raising issues relevant to this region will only give India the chance to become the voice of the global South, which again is a position that China has been eyeing. India says its conduct as president of G20 will be inclusive, ambitious, decisive. The theme New Delhi has chosen is Vasudev Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. The dragon is a threat to this very future, and India has the opportunity to tame it. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.